Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with JK47, and Big Easy. We're going to continue our coverage of the AL Central. We're going to talk about the Minnesota Twins. If nobody mentions Kirby Puckett or Turi Hunter, I don't even care about this segment.
What about Byung-ho Kang's former teammate?
Well, if we mention him, we may actually get views, because I think the Byung-ho Kang segment is our second most viewed episode of all time.
Believe it.
Fans, any questions or comments you got on this episode, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. Although if you got baseball questions, you're better off hitting up the show's account so that I can bother Dash.
Who? His brother? His brother-in-law?
He said bother.
No, Byung-ho Kang's brother-in-law you referred
Oh, no. Oh, I see what you're
Who's
saying.
he? Player.
Yeah, he was the first baseman on Byung-ho's team in Korea.
Oh, I thought you said it was his brother-in-law.
No, you're dead wrong.
All right, well, this dude's... It can't happen twice. Lightning can't strike twice, can it?
Well, first of all, we're talking about Byung-ho Park. The Minnesota Twins signed him. He plays first base there. You're going to use him more of a DH most likely. But he wasn't considered as good as Byung-ho Kang. Byung-ho Kang was considered the best player over there. But Byung-ho Park was right behind him, and this is a huge power hitter. More power than Byung-ho Kang, actually.
Oh.
We'll have to see how his strikeout rate and his walk rate looks when he enters the bigs here. But I'm guessing this guy has more of a chance to hit 30 home runs than Byung-ho does.
So he's like the Binford version of Byung-ho at the plate.
I guess if you want to look at it that way, sure.
That's how I'll look at it then.
I mean, that was their big signing this offseason. They also signed Carlos Quentin to a minor league deal, see if maybe he can make the team out of camp. Yeah, I've always been a Carlos Quentin fan, but really, he's been injured way too much in his career.
How old's that dude?
He's well into his 30s now.
Well into his 30s?
Yes.
Is Hunter there? Didn't he re-sign?
Yeah, he went back.
He retired.
I thought he retired.
But he did go back.
Yeah, he went back in the
part
end.
of last year, I
Yeah.
thought.
They also traded for catcher John Ryan Murphy from the New York Yankees. They gave up Aaron Hicks in that deal, outfielder Aaron Hicks. He was a prospect not long ago, a top 100 prospect. They brought him up. He didn't work out exactly how they wanted. I mean, he still has a lot of progression to go. But, I mean, this guy looks like a pretty good player to me, and I think the Yankees made out on that deal.
I was going to say, they obviously needed help at the catching position because, I
Yeah.
mean, I liked Hicks as a fourth outfielder, perhaps even
Right.
a starter. I mean, he's good insurance. Of course, I mean, there's huge mega prospect Byron Buxton. I mean, that's pretty much probably what made him expendable in the first place.
Plus, you had the other prospect, Eddie Rosario, who started off as a second baseman in the minor leagues. They moved him to the outfield. They like his upside as well, so he's going to get a chance to play in this outfield as well. And they're moving Miguel Sano to outfield as well.
So, I mean, yeah, we're I guess he was the one that was expendable. They needed catching help.
Right. They also lost Mike Pelfrey in free agency. Nothing big there. And they lost relief pitcher Brian Dunsing in free agency. Not a huge loss there. They also have relief pitchers Neil Kotz and Blaine Boyer unsigned right now. It's doubtful that they will re-sign them, but they are still out there. So
Hopefully those guys they released aren't listening to the show. You're sitting here saying it's no big deal. You're probably killing these dudes' confidence.
Well, listen, just because it's no big deal you lose someone, it doesn't mean that it's not a big deal another team brings them in. I'm not saying Mike Pelfrey, it's a big deal that someone else brought him in, but there are players where you can lose them and it's okay for your team, but he could be a big addition for another team.
So, Minnesota, peace. Brian, you're out.
Believe it.
It don't matter.
So that's pretty much, I mean, all they did this offseason. You look at their outfield, it's very young. Like I said, Eddie Rosario, JK47 mentioned Byron Buxton. This was the top prospect in baseball. He came out last season, made his debut, and he struggled mightily. I mean, he was pretty bad last season, and they really expect him to turn it around here this season in his first full season. And you have to give this guy every opportunity. Even if it takes 2 or 3 years, you got to give this guy a very, very long opportunity to meet his potential because really it's Andrew McCutchen type potential. And then in right field, Miguel Sano, the big prospect third baseman, we know this guy came up last year as well, and he crushes the ball. I mean, he hits a ton of home runs, but he also strikes out nearly 50% of the time. I mean, this guy strikes out a ton. So he did have a decent average last year, hit a lot of power because he can take the walk as well. But I highly doubt that his average is going to be able to stay up in the 280s if he's striking out over 40% of the time. But in the end, I mean, I like the looks of this outfield, at least the upside. And plus, you got Max Kepler as well. This is another prospect, a little bit older, but this guy does nothing but hit. He doesn't have a ton of power. He doesn't steal a lot of bases or anything, but he has a high average and a high on-base percentage. And I really think that they could find this guy a way to start as well. He can play some first base. If Joe Mauer doesn't work out at first base, I wouldn't mind at all seeing Max Kepler get a shot there. I really like that guy. Plus, you got Danny Santana, Oswaldo Arcia. You got a lot of options in the outfield if someone here fills. They're going to give Sano and Buxton all the time in the world. But Eddie Rosario, I mean, if he struggles for a month or two, they might look to do something else out there.
How about their infield? I mean, they actually ended up moving Sano to right field just so they can keep Trevor Floof in the lineup.
Right, that's exactly why.
They like this. They like this guy here in Minnesota. I mean,
I like him too.
A lot of talk about him being trade bait, and then all of a sudden, like, he actually tuned in the big season.
Yeah, I mean, Sano can move to first base too in the end, maybe as well. Plouffe, there's no reason to push him out right now when you have open spots to play. Sano, like I said, in the outfield here. I mean, you want to get Plouffe in the lineup. He's one of your better hitters. How about Eduardo Escobar here at shortstop? This is a guy that never really did much with the bat, but he does play good shortstop. However, last season he actually came out and hit double-digit home runs. He hit 12, I believe it was. So if he doesn't do much with the bat and just hits 12 home runs for you and plays good defense, I mean, that's a pretty solid shortstop to have.
Well, I mean, at second base, I mean, I like Brian Dozier. I mean, he
obviously, you gotta love him.
Spark plug. Trailed off a little bit in the second half of the year, though.
He didn't have the biggest year. I mean, he's had bigger years in the past. I think he hit closer to 300 one year. Now he's down closer to 260, I believe it is. I don't think he's more of a 300 type hitter. His average may go a little lower, but like you said, this guy's a spark plug. He can put the ball. He can hit the ball out of the ballpark too. I mean, this guy gets it done in many ways.
Steals bases too, doesn't he?
Yeah, not many. I mean, he's not a big stolen base threat, but he's just one of those guys that can do everything well.
And then first base, you got Joe Mauer.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you really say about what he gives you? I mean, he, for the most part, gets on base at least.
Yeah, I mean, a great player in Minnesota Twins history, but really, his numbers just don't play to first base. His numbers don't play to his contract, really. Is he still on that same contract?
Yeah, he is.
See, that hurts. I mean, he had that big season as a catcher, and they signed him to the big contract, hoping he could remain a big power hitter for him, and he just never lived up to it. And then they knew they were going to move him to first base eventually from catcher, which usually happens with catchers, and it just doesn't play at first base. But, I mean, he's still a solid hitter, if nothing else. You know what I mean? It's not the worst option in the world.
Just kind of makes you wonder how he hit 28 home runs that 1 year.
I mean, that was back in the steroid era.
Yep, please believe.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say he did steroids, but a lot of those home runs
Everybody
from a
did
lot of
steroids.
players came back in those days.
Still doing steroids.
But they also, look, Miguel Sano, he could play some first base maybe. Kenny's Vargas, a guy I talked up last year, he really had a bad year, and they don't know if he's even going to make the 25-man roster. But this is a guy that has power. He hit well in the minors. So it's possible you could see him at DH or first base a little bit this season. I don't know. And like I said, Byung-ho Park, he can play first base as well. So you may see him there a little bit as well. And then you can give Mauer some time at DH, Sano some time at DH. You got a lot of options here. And then a catcher, Kurt Suzuki. I mean, this has been a reliable catcher over the years. Had some pretty good seasons. There was seasons he hit over 300, I believe, 1 or 2 seasons there back to back. I'm not going to say he's a perennial 300 hitter or anything like that, but he's solid defensively.
Ain't no Joe Mauer.
Well, no, he was never Joe Mauer, obviously, but Kurt Suzuki's one of the better catchers in baseball, I want to say, at least defensively, and gives you something with the bat at least. So I look at this Minnesota team, and really offensively, yeah, there's a lot of questions because there's a lot of youth in the outfield. But, I mean, you kind of know what you're going to get from your infield here. You have to see about Byung-ho Park, but I really like what I see, especially if Buxton and Sano can really break out this season. I guess you can say Sano broke out last season, but there's a lot of guys here I like offensively. The big question to me is this rotation. You have Phil Hughes, Irvin Santana, Cal Gibson, Tyler Duffy, Tommy Malone. I mean, that rotation doesn't look real good right now, but you do have a big-time prospect in the minors, Jose Barrios. He's 21 years old. He led all minors with 175 Ks last season in AAA. He's not an elite pitcher in any area, but he's above average everywhere. He has the upside of a number one, and really on this team, he should be their number one pitcher. But, I mean, he has a downside of a number three pitcher at worst. I think this guy is a pretty sure thing for a prospect. He's going to be at least in the top half of the rotation, and I believe it's going to be this year. It has to be this year because, I mean, Minnesota has a pretty good team here, and they need some pitchers in this rotation. Phil Hughes isn't the worst in the world, but he had a down year last year compared to the year before, although I was never really high on him. I think a lot of people expected he'd drop back down to earth last season. Irvin Santana had a huge end of the season last year, and they're hoping he can continue doing that. And if he does, I mean, that is a solid number two. I see them missing a number one pitcher right now, though.
Well, it's definitely not Phil Hughes then, huh?
No, I think Phil Hughes is someone I would be very comfortable with as a number three pitcher. Irvin Santana, I'll accept as my number two pitcher. So you have a 2, 3, and then your 4 and 5 can be Gibson and Duffy, you know what I mean? Even Tommy Malone, if he can stay healthy, could be a 4 or 5 for you. You just need that number one, and I think they're planning on Jose Barrios to be that guy.
Well, I mean, it's worth noting, too, that Duffy looked good in his 10-start edition at the end of last season. So, I mean, they like what they saw out of him. That's why, I mean, getting a shot at that number 4 role. But the guy I actually am, like, what are you going to get out of Kyle Gibson this year?
Yeah,
I mean,
I've never been high on that guy, but he does have stretches where he pitches very well, and then he has stretches where he just gets blown up. So he needs to find consistency over anything else. A couple prospects they have in the infield. We were talking about Eduardo Escobar. He might be able to hit for a little bit of power for you, plays good defense. But they do have an infielder, shortstop, Jorge Polanco. He might be a second baseman. You can move him around a little bit. No, I don't think.
Why do so many baseball players have the same name? Is it just me, or is it in baseball you see players with the same name more than any other sport?
Well, there's more players in this sport than any other sport.
Yeah, but there's 100 Rodriguez's, there's 100 Hernandez's.
Well,
I mean, there's 53 men on a football roster, so there's more football players than baseball players.
Well, you're just talking about the roster, though. I mean, you go through the.
Well, yeah, you have the whole system in baseball.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I don't know. You go to Venezuela. Is it when you go to Venezuela? Is it just a bunch of Hernandez's? I really don't know.
I've never even been in an airplane, so I've never left the country to find out.
In Cuba, they got all kind of last names.
But look, Jorge Polanco, he's 22 years old. He's a switch hitter. He hit 288 with a 339 on base last season between AA and AAA. This guy actually got called up to the bigs a couple times over the past 2 seasons, I believe it was. He got called up for a few games, went back down. They just wanted to give him a taste of the big leagues, I guess. And then they did it again last season. But this guy hit well when he was actually in the bigs. And I was kind of surprised they sent him down. But he has a little bit of speed. I think this is going to be a very valuable player here in the future, and I could see him slotting in over Escobar at some point this season. And there's also relief pitcher Alex Meyer, one time thought to be a starter. I think they're going to move him to relief pitcher now. He's 25 years old. He struggled as a starter. He's 6'9". He always had a high walk rate, but he has succeeded in a relief role. So that is one relief option they have. Obviously, they have Glenn Perkins at the back end of the bullpen. That's still a good option for you. But outside of that, you have Kevin Jepson, Trevor May. I mean, he showed some upside in the bullpen as well. Their bullpen, kind of shallow, I would say. If they can get Alex Meyer up there, though, he's a guy that could pitch at the back end of a bullpen if they can limit his walks just a tiny bit, because, I mean, you can walk more people as a reliever and get away with it if you're striking out a ton of people, and that's something Alex Meyer can do. And if they can get him in there, then you got Perkins, Meyer, Kevin Jepson, May. I mean, it's starting to get a little bit deeper. Outside of that, I think it's a little shallow. But with this rotation, I say they're going to have a little bit of trouble unless Jose Barrios steps in immediately and starts pitching like a number 1 or at least a number 2 pitcher. Until then, I mean, I can't predict this team any higher than 4th. I'm going to say 5th place.
I'm going to crack one for Minnesota because I love them. They're my second favorite baseball team, and I'll pick them in 2nd place.
2nd place.
Somehow they're going to get it done. They always get it done.
Yeah, I mean, they always compete. Even last season, there was a point that they were competing and it looked like they could make a playoff run, and then they fell off a little short. But, I mean, yeah, they have a good offense. There's no doubt about it. It's just this rotation at this point. I mean, it's not the worst in the world.
The division's garbage.
I think it's a very tight division. I'm not saying you're wrong about them coming in second place, because this division is going to be very tight, and I could see it possible. I look at Phil Hughes listed as their number 1 pitcher right now, and I mean, they may change it. Maybe it is Irvin Santana. I don't know. Either way, I don't know. It's not too much. What do you think?
They're better than the White Sox.
Better than the White Sox? I don't know. White Sox made some moves.
They're garbage.
I could see this team finishing anywhere between 2nd and 5th, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So what are you going to say? That is no prediction whatsoever.
I mean, I want to say...
Yeah, what are you, a politician?
Either pick a place or over or under 78 wins,
They'll
Jeff.
finish somewhere in the division.
I'm going to over.
Over 78 wins?
78's a good number to pick.
I don't like the rotation. I like the rest of the team. The rest of the team is great, but the rotation kind of scares me right now. And until Barrios comes up there, but even so, like, how much damage is he going to be able to inflict on the pitch limitation?
Right.
So I mean, you got to look at it that way too.
Yeah, you can, but man, I'm getting Barrios up here as fast as I can, because I see this offense can compete. I just need a number 1 pitcher. I mean, like I said, the other 2 guys I'll take is the 2 and 3. It looks good if you just move them all down 1 slot. You know what I mean?
I think I'd like Santana as a number 2 over Hughes, though.
That's what I'm saying. You flip those 2, move everybody down. So you have 2, 3, and then you can fill out with... I mean, Gibson gives you some good starts, like I was saying before. And like you said, Tyler Duffy looked pretty good at moments last season as well. So you could see some upside here. Once Barrios steps in, I mean, you may have a shot to compete in this division. Like Easy said, you could end up second place maybe and have a shot at a wild card.
The one thing you can say about the Twins is at least none of their players are beating the crap out of their kids with branches.
Well, I'm going to say 2nd.
Second place. Wow. What about you, Jim?
Good one.
4th, because I already got Cleveland, the Royals, and Detroit somewhere in 1, 2, 3, not necessarily in that order. So I hate the White Sox, so I got to give Minnesota 4.
I really like Minnesota here, and I'm very, very excited about this outfield. And I can't wait to see Buxton this season. I really hope he turns into that elite type player.
Block ad, dude, he's garbage.
Well, then you better pick him as 5th place.
Anything else?
Nope.
We're done boring everybody with our baseball talk.
Yep.
Fans, like I said earlier, follow us on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Follow me on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube and click and subscribe. Throw us a comment or 2. We like to hear from you.